Hello.
Bombastigon.
Bombastigon.
We're calling this podcast Bombastigon.
That's the name of the podcast, is Bombastigon.
Yes, it could have been Podcastigon, but it's not. It's Bombastigon.
It's Bombastigon.
This is Matt.
I am Tyler.
And this is Bombastigon.
Bombastigon!
So,
today's episode is titled, You Talkin R2 To Me?
Which is a really good name for a podcast episode. And I hope you enjoyed the cover image.
Yes.
And if you somehow are accessing this audio in a way that did not bring you through that image, find the image. You owe that to yourself.
Find it. Do you want to give a quick explanation of how we ended up with that?
I think it speaks for itself, but you can if you want.
So we were talking about Detroit Become Human, which is gonna be a big part of this episode, because this episode's about androids, and that game is literally just androids. So we were talking about Detroit Become Human, and Dad brought up, Hank. But he didn't elaborate, so my brain immediately was like, oh, Hank Hill from King of the Hill. So we drew Hank Hill in Kara's android uniform while holding a propane tank with Bobby's face. A skin-colored propane tank with Bobby's face on it.
All very intuitive.
Very important.
Yes, had to happen, and now it has happened.
You're welcome.
There it is.
So, that's that.
Yes. And today's episode, we are going to be talking about androids and video games with androids in them.
Because this is a video game podcast. So obviously we have to talk about video games.
Exactly. And there's a lot of video games that have androids in them, and in fairly recent history, there were two that were pretty big deals. There was Detroit Become Human and Nier Automata. That's how I like to say it. I think it's actually Automata, but Automata is way more fun to say.
Automata's way better.
So I'm going to go with Nier Automata, but
I'd much rather say Automata than Automata.
Exactly, but I know if I kept on just calling it Automata without even referring to how it's, I think, supposed to be pronounced, some people would be irritated the entire time, but now I've called attention to it, and we can all just move on. We can all just move on.
So, we should probably start with Detroit, because it's the one in the thumbnail. And
that is fair.
So,
yes.
You begin.
So, Detroit Become Human is an interesting case where I've played the earlier games by, what's the fellow's name who made it?
I have no clue.
What's his name?
What's his name?
It's on the tip of, Ooh, I'm so close. The guy. So,
the guy.
The guy. He made this video game called Indigo Prophecy, some years back, and it was a very groundbreaking situation where it was a very cinematic game, and even though there have, of course, been, cinematic games before, like FMV games and all that stuff, Indigo Prophecy really did impress me. I actually feel genuinely as one of the strongest openings I've ever seen to a game, where you're thrust immediately into controlling a character who just committed a murder while in a trance, and they snap out of the trance, realize they committed a murder, they're in a public restroom with a dead body holding a bloody knife, and you just need to escape from that, and you're in the restaurant of the restroom of a diner, and you see that in split screen that there's a cop in the diner, and he's going to be using the restroom soon, and so you have to frantically try to hide the body, get out of there, play it cool, and it's just so immediately intense and engaging that I was just like, this is maybe the best game ever.
What kind of person's okay, so we're making a video game. This is what we're doing. We're devoting our time, our money, our effort. We're making a video game. This is what we're doing. And you're like, we should start it by thrusting this person into hiding a body in a diner with a cop outside the door.
It was genius. The thing is, though, even though Indigo Prophecy had an amazingly strong opening and had some, and some other strong moments along the way, I felt, and a lot of people, I'm not trying to act like this is a hot take here.
Hot take?
It's just not. It's a cold take, because it's true. that it kind of fizzled out as it went on. I don't know whether it's just a case where they ran out of money, or whether their ambitions just went too crazy and they got sloppy, and one of those things where before you know the mystery it seems intriguing, but once you do know the truth, it's just kind of stupid. But it started out as this like cool, interesting cult murder mystery thing, and then it just kept on getting more and more deep, and until it was like full like apocalyptic sci-fi, Mayan, immortal demigod man.
What?
And the final boss is the living embodiment of the internet, question mark? Also, it turns out that all homeless people are just secretly part of some, like, hidden society that sort of, like, you know, does good deeds and manipulates events for the better from the shadows. So anytime you worry about the homelessness situation, don't worry, guys. They're just pretending. That's not bad optics at all.
Oh my god.
So yeah.
Dear Lord.
Indigo Prophecy was a mess. It was a charming mess in many ways and at many points, especially early on, before it becomes atrociously stupid. But
Riverdale who?
Right?
Riverdale is quaking.
But the thing is, since then, the guy... Now, could we have researched this and checked his name beforehand? We could have, but we leave that as an exercise to the listener.
We're not losers.
Yes,
we don't
the guy.
research anything ever.
Exactly.
What kind of loser?
We go in here with the knowledge we have.
What kind of nerd?
To research stuff would be dishonest, because that would not just be coming into this with the knowledge we naturally have and have accumulated through living our lives.
Yeah!
That makes sense, don't question it. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Woo!
Yeah. But since then, he's made a few other games, and Detroit Become Human, I feel, is his most fully realized one so far. It's the first one where I feel like...
oh, it's a real good game.
Yeah, and
it's a legendary game.
And it doesn't get, like, stupid at any point. Like, at least if you like Detroit at the beginning...
One thing I don't like about Detroit is that annoying menu, Android.
I agree with you.
She annoyed the hell out of me.
Some people became attached to her, but yeah, I don't get it either.
I was so sick of her. I was like, oh my god, just shut up, I just want to play a game!
And that's the thing. Some people, Detroit will not be their kind of game, but it's at least a case where if you like Detroit at the beginning, you're gonna like the whole thing. Like, it's consistent, it builds well, it never, like, destroys its own story with just pure nonsense the way certain earlier games from that fella did. So, I really feel like it's, you know, it's an impressively well put together piece of work, and also, I gotta say, going back to Indigo Prophecy for a moment, that acted like it had a bunch of branching paths and choices that were significant, which mattered. It really didn't. It kind of faked it.
Yeah.
Detroit Become Human, though, like...
I've seen so many different endings.
Yes.
I got, like, the worst possible one.
It was heartbreaking.
If you guys are curious to see, I did live stream the entire playthrough on my YouTube channel, but, my playthrough ended with pretty much all androids being incinerated. Like, Kara and Alice went into an incinerator. I think Marcus got, like, shot, or he died, I think. Hank killed himself, and Connor either died or was just, like, not in a good situation. So I got, like, a worst possible ending, which is very sad, considering I thought that the choices I were making would lead me to good things. I just acted based off my instinct. Apparently my instinct wants me to kill everybody, because everyone died, except for, I think, Connor.
It was pretty regrettable.
It was really bad.
It was bad.
I mean, technically, there was literally online, there's, like, only a few other variations that probably could have been worse, where I guess if Connor died, that would have been worse, although I never really liked Connor. I'm just...
Put that out there.
I'm gonna get so much hate mail for saying that.
People do love Connor.
I did not really care for Connor. The only thing is that Alice and Kara died anyways, but I did see a clip where apparently, if you don't do something, which thankfully I did the thing successfully, Alice tries to run to Kara and gets shot on the way over. So thankfully that didn't happen, but she still died anyways in a giant incinerator. So really, Which one is worse? Getting shot by a guard trying to go back to car or burning in an incinerator? Who knows?
That's right.
Because she dies either way. So, my playthrough of Detroit...
It went places. Terrible, sobering, upsetting places.
It was really fun to play. Some moments were genuinely horrifying, like a scene where Marcus is in a junkyard.
Yes.
And there's like a bunch of jump scares, and I was not prepared.
That was a very striking and atmospheric moment.
That was
I was impressed.
Horrifying scene. Hello? Is that your phone?
Yes.
Your phone? Okay. I was like, what is that? But yes, so it had many good moments. Some were just uncomfortable, like a stripper android scene.
Disturbing.
I played that while Hole and Loki, my cousins, were over, and Loki was actually in the room while I was streaming it, and we were just like, oh my god, there are naked...
This is awkward!
There are stripper androids. It was awkward. And then there's other cheerful scenes, or like heartwarming scenes, like all of the scenes with Cara and Alice. That was adorable. I love their little dynamic. There were scenes that made me want to go through the scene and dropkick somebody. Specifically, Todd, was that?
I believe it was Todd.
I have a character named Todd, and I feel so bad naming him that. Because there are good Todds, like Todd from BoJack. My Todd is a very... Not gonna go into detail. He's a mixed person, but genuinely a good person.
And definitely... not even fair to compare him to the Detroit Todd.
Yeah.
Worst of all Todds.
I wanted to... You have no idea. If you watch my stream of the game, my streams of the game, I was so livid at everything about him. I just was so sick of him. And then, or like Leo, or I don't know, Carl's son. I think his name was Leo. He also made me mad, especially because of what happened to Carl. Carl was such a precious
Carl!
Rest in peace, Carl.
Yes.
Rip Carl. And then there were other scenes that were very intense, like the whole junkyard scene scared the hell out of me because there were like 50 jump scares, and if you know me, you know, I can watch a horror movie where somebody's getting their intestines ripped out. I will be unfazed. But you give me a jump scare,
that's a whole different game.
Screw you. So there was that, and it was just this whole mix of like different kinds of scenes, like heartwarming, like specifically Cardinals, angry, and I hated them, uncomfortable, like a stripper scene, some even like little lighthearted scenes. But it was just a very well-rounded game, even though I got like the worst possible ending.
But at least the fact that you could get an ending that bad shows that it wasn't faking it, like that it was honest and real with like the range of ways that things could go.
Yeah.
And to be like, you know, to mention this, you know, people of course can poke holes and be like, aha, this part acts like they can go different directions, but actually can't. But like, yes, there's always gonna be like a chance to do it even more, but unquestionably, the range of possibilities and different ways that Detroit can go is staggering. Even the fact that you didn't care for Connor is interesting in of itself, because the playthrough that I watched, like the whole thing that sort of made Connor as a character was his friendship with Hank, and for you that just really wasn't even a thing. And that's like, again, something that can like be an enormous part of the story or not. Like
for me, Hank. Like, Connor... I know some people want... What is it called? Deviant? Like, when they're...
I believe so.
I know if you make Connor, like, a deviant, it can go in better places. I just didn't. I don't know why. Just all the options. I clicked... Didn't lead to that happening. Which also led to Hank being really annoyed by him. So, yeah, I really didn't like Connor when I played through, and he didn't really have much of a friendship at all with Hank. If anything, Hank was just irritated by him the entire time. Yeah,
well, of course, like, in other ways, it can start out that way, but it can really build up to, like, a very heartwarming dynamic between the two. But it's just a situation where it really is very impressive, and the only complaint that I have heard that I do at least see, even if I don't really agree to it to the same
is the menu
point.
Robot got...
I know that's your stance.
I think her name was Chloe.
That sounds right.
I hate her. Chloe can die.
I've heard people complain that it's just overly on the nose with things. And, you know, like, yes, but that's not the worst thing in the world. It's going for big emotions and like sweeping things. Like it's not subtle about things, but it's good and it's powerful, and I really think it's an impressive piece of work. I think Detroit is a very well done thing with like a genuinely amazing level of craftsmanship and quality to it, and lots of like great moments. And I also don't like that I also do like that it doesn't railroad you into all the good moments. Like it's willing to hide good moments or hide shocking moments, and just if you don't miss them, so be it.
Yeah. Marcus's storyline. My favorite storyline, for at least when I play through, would probably be Kara's, just because Kara is Bean. We love her. Best girl. We stan. Alice is adorable. We stan. I think I accidentally got, I forgot his name. There was like another android or something that joined them at one point. Yeah, I think I might have accidentally gotten killed.
I remember that guy. I don't remember his name, but I do remember that guy.
He was a Bean. Even though I found a gun in his bag, which scared the hell out of me. I'm like, why does this man have a gun? What is he going to do with that gun? So I really didn't trust him, but in the end, he didn't actually do anything wrong, and I think I might have gotten him killed on accident. There was also Jerry.
Yes, I remember the Jerrys.
We are Jerry.
Yes.
Horrifying, but wholesome. So that would probably be my favorite storyline. Then maybe Marcus. The one thing that annoyed me about Marcus is when I was doing the whole speech thing, because at least when I did it, he went to like this new station, he broke in, and he did like a whole like speech. I thought that the things I was saying would sound reasonable to the people, but I feel like that was one of the main things that led to my horrible ending. I don't know what I could have said that would make that not happen.
Public speaking's difficult.
I thought that everything Marcus is saying would have gone over fine. Apparently, I had too much faith in humanity, which is a frequent problem people can have because humanity is stupid. And it ended with everyone dying in an incinerator. Lovely.
Man, people are nervous giving speeches even on the best of circumstances. Imagine how nervous you would be giving a speech if you knew that if you screwed it up, everybody would die in an incinerator.
Yeah.
That's like the public speaking nightmare.
Yeah. I didn't know that would happen, obviously. Like, I knew they told me, like, it might not go well, so I knew that much. I was like, this could have repercussions. I didn't know that the repercussions would be all the androids, including Kara and Alice, who are beans, and I love them.
Yeah, that is dark for it to go that
dying in an incinerator.
Rude.
Being stripped of all their unique appearances because they had to, like, get rid of their skins or whatever. Which, saying that out loud sounds disgusting. It's not... It's not as gross as it sounds.
Yeah.
Also, Jerry died in the incinerator, because I remember seeing a Jerry in a concentration camp. They put concentration camps in Detroit Become Human.
Yeah, that's, again, it all ties into how... it's not a subtle game, no, but by God, these are not subtle times. People, like, I'm fine with swinging for the fences, and I really do think that, you know, even though Detroit Become Human, I've heard people nitpick it, and you can do that. I think that if you get in the spirit of it, there's a lot to be impressed by and really get gripped by.
Well done game.
I think so, and I really think that it is, you know, incredibly well done as far as, like, these are, like, you know, choose your own adventure style, you know, engrossing cinematic type video games win. I really think it's one of the most impressive and well done of its type.
Who's your favorite Go-3 main characters?
I gotta say, for me, keep in mind that the way I experienced it was primarily through...
yeah, because you didn't really play a good game, did you?
Yes.
I played through a good game because it was free.
Yeah, but I saw
PS4.
I caught parts of your playthrough, and then I saw primarily a playthrough by Super Great Friend, who was a very good streamer. And to be fair, Super Great Friend made fun of it quite a bit, but he clearly still liked it. And I thought his chat was being a bit too hard on the game. While Super Great Friend seemed to find a balance where he could find things to be, you know, to sort of have fun with, but still he clearly was getting engrossed and enjoying himself.
Yeah.
And yes, like...
three main characters, just to reiterate, are Kara, Marcus, and Connor.
For the playthrough I saw of Super Great Friends, the first one he did, the primary one, it would be Connor. just really, like, Connor, I found his... Because he really, like, he's sort of like the most square and kind of android acting of the androids, I feel.
I hate him.
Yes, but I feel like that's why the development, especially through his weird friendship with Hank, like that's thing, Connor and Hank both kind of suck at the beginning of the game in different ways. And so it's sort of like a weirdly heartwarming thing, seeing two flawed people making each other better through their friendship. It was a weird,
maybe that's what happened when you saw it.
Yes, I know that, and that's the thing. If that didn't happen, I could easily see feeling very different. And I think that if Connor did not have the journey he went on, Kara would be my favorite aside. Marcus, no offense to Marcus, I just feel like he, as an individual, didn't have quite as much personality. Like, he felt more like he was filling a role in the narrative rather than really feeling like a richly realized individual.
I liked him at the beginning when he was with Carl because he and Carl's dynamic was precious. But then Carl died. Even though Carl was such a wholesome being and I loved him so much. But I definitely liked him in those opening scenes. And I feel like if I did the thing where Carl didn't die, which I didn't know was a thing you could do, I feel like I probably would have liked his dynamic. But it was just a whole...
What was the thing?
It was the whole thing. And Connor just annoyed me. I didn't like him. Kara, I really like how you can choose her hair color.
That was a cool little option to give.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that game, it had a lot of really intense moments that, like, really had me feeling invested, like,
Junkyard scene was horrifying. Todd throw hands with that man! He made me so angry.
He was so, and again, too, same with Todd, there are so many different ways that the Todd situation can unfold and echo through the rest of the game. Like, it's very impressive.
What are the other ways?
I mean, for one thing, you can end up, like, you can sort of, like, either sneak out effectively or get this huge, like, very densely and complicatedly choreographed fight scene that can keep on, like, sprawling to a whole big chase, like, depending on how well or badly it goes.
I feel like mine was, like, a midway. Like, I feel like it wasn't, like, a huge cinematic thing, but there was quite a bit of, like, fighting and running and having to be, like, quick on your feet and stuff.
And you either kill him...
Oh yeah, I did see that. There was like a gun.
Or let him live. And if you let him live, there's also a variable that he can pop up later on in the game.
He can?
He can.
I did see him in the police station, I think in like one of the scenes of Connor's scenes.
Yeah, and there's a whole thing...
Or at least somebody with the exact same character model as him. But he didn't really pop up in any other way.
There's a way, like, I again, don't know all the variables that cause this to happen, but he can actually show up and intercept Kara and Alice right as they're about to cross the border to safety, and depending on how that goes, he can either turn you guys in and doom you, or if you know what to say to get through to the one tiny little speck of humanity in his dumpster of a soul.
Blackened, broken, ripped apart to shreds, non-existent heart.
Yes, you can at least, like, get through to him enough to make him, let you guys through.
That didn't happen, thank God.
Yeah, I mean, again, that doesn't redeem him. He is irredeemable, but it is possible at least get him to choose one out of the countless times to not do the worst, most monstrous possible thing.
One scene that was really interesting, in my opinion, was when Connor was chasing Kara.
Yes, that's interesting.
That was really interesting because you can play as both of them. I don't remember if you play as Kara or Connor in that. Their names are so similar.
Yeah, but it's weird. Like the protagonists are at cross purposes with each other.
Especially ones that you can play as both of them. I think I played as Connor, but I'm not sure. I think it might have been like the beginning of the scene where you play as Kara, and then once the chase actually starts, you play as Connor. But it was a very odd scene, because I was like, I'm on Kara's side, obviously, because I don't like Connor, because he's annoying.
Yeah.
It was weird. In that same town, I started the second playthrough of it, and instead of going in a car, I went in a house, That was creepy.
Yes,
that
and again,
man was creepy.
super
I forgot
creepy.
his name.
But again, you can miss all of that.
The android was creepy. I'm pretty sure there was like a dead body or something in the bathtub upstairs.
Oh, yeah.
That was, bad vibes. Bad vibes that whole time. And I'm like, well, I'm very glad I didn't go to the house last time because, yikes. Bad vibes from that one. Bad vibes on that one. But yeah, it's just so interesting.
It is.
How you could go through that whole town and never find that entire character.
Yep. It's an impressive piece of work. It really is. And obviously, and just for the record, if you have more big discussion points you want to talk about with Detroit, we certainly can. Otherwise, I did have maybe one final point about it that will kind of segue into Nier Automata. Yep, take a moment.
I do want to quickly touch on the deck scenes.
Absolutely.
Because I know you could probably get more deck scenes depending on what you did. I got a lot. First off, everyone died at the end, so there's that. Hank killed himself. I think either Marcus shot one guy, the one guy from Jericho that Marcus was friends with got shot, and I'm pretty sure he died. I'm pretty sure the guy that was with Kara got shot and died. And it's so weird because all of them have, different levels of emotional pull depending on how you feel about the characters. Saddest one, in my opinion, was probably Kara and Alice burning in an incinerator!
Which is just harsh.
Because I didn't really care too much for the other characters, but...
Oh yeah, I mean...
It's just
seeing Kara and Alice, it doesn't matter how invested you are in the story, that's just the mere notion of that is just so
depressing.
Devastatingly sad. That's just you gotta feel something.
Mother-daughter figures burned together in an incinerator. Which I guess is better than Alice getting shot trying to run to Kara and then Kara dying by herself in the incinerator, but it's still not that much better.
Nope. It just ain't right.
Anyways, what was your final point?
Just to talk about, to bring up, to the whole Android, guiding theme there, I feel like we should look at how these, the two main games we'll be talking about, and any others we want to bring up along the way, use androids, and why they would choose that to be a thing. Because these are both games that don't just have androids in them. It is all about androids.
Yeah, Detroit is very, very clearly about racism.
Exactly.
Or, any form of discrimination, but more specifically racism, because there's, the whole segregation and everything.
It's super on the nose about it.
It's more specifically about racism, but it could also be seen as any form of discrimination.
It really can. It's an open-ended enough thing, and I feel like that is something that some people complain about, where they felt like it was both overly on the nose and, heavy-handed with that, but also, overly vague in other ways with, being so non-specific. Again, though, I feel that doesn't really bother me. I feel like the androids, can be, as just a general stand-in for any sort of, oppressed group within a society, is a fair enough thing. It doesn't layer up 100% or anything like that, but it also does tie into, the whole, people being scared of things that are new, because that, ties into also, and similarly to, about androids doing work, and of course there's a whole, notion that a lot of people are terrified of immigration because they think, immigrants are going to take all the jobs and everything, as if they're not larger underlying social issues that need to be dealt with, that are the actual issue behind there not being enough jobs.
Yeah.
It's just a sort of thing of, blaming the wrong people for, whatever's going wrong, and just sort of, punching down instead of actually trying to make the world a better place, and all these things. And I feel like androids because they are non-specific, but can symbolize various different things, I think they actually work pretty well, because, as soon as you get specific as well, people can sort of almost not even give it a chance. They'll be oh, this is going to be a message, it's going to be preachy, I'm not going to try it. While, if you just sort of tell a story...
Literally every fan of the 80s She-Ra who's ew, it's gay! It must be some liberal propaganda bullcrap.
Exactly. Well, sometimes you can sneak in a good, important moral, by just sort of not being as overt about it. And science fiction and fantasy can certainly do that. And so, the androids, they could stand in for an awful lot of different things from moment to moment, and depending on what sort of perspective that you bring to it. But at any rate, I would hope that anyone who plays the game,
doesn't want people to burn them in incinerators because they're androids or whatever.
Exactly.
That's
just
like
sort of
bare minimum human decency.
One would hope so.
Just don't burn the entire population in a giant incinerator because you're angry. That reminds me of one scene, which actually, I don't think I got this scene the first time I played through, but when I started to play through it a second time, there's a scene where Marcus is in a city, and I guess I just, walked around this, or just, for whatever reason didn't get into this, but I walked through, a crowd of people, and Marcus started getting beat up by all these, anti-android people, and so that just kind of reminded me of that scene.
Yes. So it's a thing where, androids as metaphor, that's, Detroit is all about androids, that's the entire thing, is just sort of a huge investigation and story all focused on that concept. If you're ready to move on, then.
I am ready.
To Nier Automata, I
have not played or seen barely any of this.
Yes. Again, Detroit was the one that you played yourself and are more familiar with. With Nier Automata, I will give you sort of a general overview.
Okay.
This
you really liked the original Nier game.
Yes, the original Nier is honestly in the running for my favorite game of all time. It's absolutely magnificent. There's a remake for it coming out. I hope it turns out well.
Let's hope so. Otherwise,
let's hope.
You might go
feral.
I
will be very upset.
You will go feral.
I will.
Go feral.
We'll see how it goes. Nier Automata is an interesting... It's honestly kind of maybe the ideal sequel in that it is... anybody who likes Nier will like Nier Automata, and I think vice versa. But it doesn't... It's not a retread, and it has lots of pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages, strengths and weaknesses, all its own. They are both wonderful experiences. I'd say they're about of equal excellence, but they're also both entirely fresh. And the sheer newness of both of them is sort of what I almost value out of a Nier game. If I ever played a Nier game that was exactly what I expected or wanted, I would almost be disappointed, even if it was very good. But Nier, the original Nier, it dealt with some issues of, artificial life and such, in sometimes very interesting and striking ways, but Nier Automata obviously goes all in on that top to bottom, where, we're going to go into huge spoilers, to be clear.
I'm fine. I don't care about this game, really. So.
And it's old enough now where I feel like most people who are interested have probably played it now, and if you haven't...
Also, if Gurgis depending, we will not hesitate to spoil a game, because we talked very in-depth on Detroit.
We did, but now it's a new game, new warning.
We talked for a half hour on Detroit.
We did. So, Nier Automata takes place in the far, far future, thousands of years, where all you are told and seem to see is that there are two factions of, artificial life at war. On one side, there are the androids, who look basically like a bunch of very stylishly dressed humans, who are very amazing fighters and all this stuff.
I would be so proud.
Yeah. And then on the other side, there are what's just called the machine life forms, which come in all sorts of weird, much more industrial, far less human-looking forms. And the machine life forms were made by an alien race that tried to take over Earth, and then androids were made by the humans to fight the alien life forms. And this war between these two armies, representing these two sides, has been going on for thousands of years.
Wow, that's a long war, Jesus.
It is. But here's the thing. Plot twist number one you find out is that the aliens that killed the machine life forms died off ages ago. The machine life forms are now fighting on their own behalf. The aliens that invented them are no longer even relevant. It turns out the aliens were actually kind of stupid, and they didn't even know how amazing their inventions were, and the machine life forms are just evolving on their own and advancing and have their whole weird hive mind and are basically a god level force that has so far surpassed their own limitations and origins.
Lovely.
And that sort of sets you up for plot twist number 2. And plot twist number 2, I actually...
Double whammy.
And this one, I saw coming because I played the first Nier, and I saw how darkly and hopelessly things seemed in that one. Basically, plot number 2 is, oh yeah, all the humans are also dead. Yes. And androids are told, oh yes, all the humans, they're still alive and well on the moon, you just need to kill the machine life forms so they can come back to Earth. There is nobody on the moon, it's all a lie. It turns out that both sides have literally just been, like, the powers that be, like the sort of general hive minds of each side, are either in collaboration or maybe even have, at this point, become the same hive mind, and they are just keeping the poor grunts, low-level foot soldiers, on like that work for them, fighting this war under false pretenses, just because they're machines, and their whole purpose was to fight a war, and they are in agreement that, well, if either side actually wins, then we wouldn't have a war to fight anymore, and we wouldn't have a purpose, and we're machines. Oh, we should have a purpose.
Wrong Hordak existential crisis.
Yeah, so it's literally just, it turns out that, like, you know, all the death and suffering and heartbreak and huge emotions all the characters were feeling were all for absolutely nothing. It's just for the sake of continuing a war that by its very design has no point but to just keep on going and causing more and more suffering forever.
Lovely.
And so it's all, at that point, it's about trying to break the cycle, and whether you can or not is a complex issue. But it's a very huge concept and very grand and everything. And it definitely takes the... It's interesting because Detroit, despite being like, you know, a little over the top, a little Hollywood at times, is a fairly down to earth.
The entire first scene is just a cinematic, like, murder, suicide attempt.
Yes.
From Daniel, I think his name was.
It sounds right, yeah.
Android at the beginning. That's literally the opening to the entire game, except for that stupid menu robot. But
But it's like, despite it being a bit Hollywood at times, it's still relatively down to earth. Like, the androids, you know, are artificial people, and that's it, and it's like in the near-ish future and all these things.
yeah.
While Nier Automata takes it
What was it, like 200 years future?
Really, was it that far?
I don't know.
I feel like it was shorter future, but I don't know at all.
I have no clue.
Really.
I feel like there were some twos in there.
It's certainly possible, but certainly compared to the thousands of years. And also, of course, Nier Automata is a full-on post-apocalyptic thing where the world has taken a form that's like not even recognizable to the modern world.
Meanwhile, Detroit's just like modern-day Detroit.
Yeah, just a little fancier. So it's interesting, like, how, like, you know, Nier Automata takes the whole concept to a far more extreme and, you know, fantastical point. And it's also interesting how it still, like, is a story that could only be told with it being about androids. Like, because that is tied into the very DNA and bones of what the story that it's trying to tell is. But it's a thing where if there is symbolism, it's definitely less on the nose. Like, anybody who plays Detroit, if you ask them, does it symbolize something? Anybody would know, yes, androids symbolize, like, persecution, racism, stuff like that. With Nier Automata, if that whole situation represents something, and it actually opens up to many different forms of interpretation. Like, the whole, like, it can be like a religious thing where, like, you know, things all fighting for a cause that doesn't even exist sort of thing. Like, and, like, sort of, like, you know, being, like, just sort of so caught up in the pattern of behavior that you never actually question it, and just all sorts of stuff. Like, it's open up to a lot of different interpretations. But beyond that, too, it can even just be taken as, like, a pure thought experiment. I think as a thought experiment of just, like, what would happen if, like, two sides of, you know, machines were, like, set to go to war, and that was their only purpose, would they have any actual vested interest in the war ever ending? And that's, yeah, no. Like, and that's, again, like, it's unclear, but it really seems very possible by the end of the game that both sides share a single hive mind that just wants keep this constant thing going.
Lovely.
And anytime one side starts to win, they'll intentionally sabotage it just to even things back out.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's weird.
It is weird.
Imagine if sports were like that.
Right?
Like, you're playing, like, I don't know, hockey or, like, Quidditch or something, and you're, like, you're getting close to the goal, and you're like, oh, but the game will be over sooner, and I don't want that, so I'm just gonna stop going near the goal, and I'm gonna go this way to annoy all my teammates, except they're not annoyed because brainwashing!
Brainwashing.
Hockey is a cult. That is my...
There you go. That's another stance.
That's the version.
That's what Nier Automata is about.
Yeah.
Hockey is a cult. That was the theme.
That was the theme of the game.
And it's also, like, and also, of course, tied into that overall story is also more specific examples of being caught in a loop, caught in a cycle. Specifically, another big plot twist is the two main characters are 2B and 9S, and 2B has to actually kill 9S at some point, and she seems devastated by that, of course, but she seems almost more devastated than you expect, and in a weird way, especially because, as far as you can tell, he will... Well, that's the thing, and especially because, they being androids, he should be able to come back in a new body without having lost his own memories. Like, so, in some ways, it even shouldn't be, like, that big of a deal for an android to kill them, you know? Yeah. Because they are, in some senses, immortal within the system.
I mean, me as Connor, I just shot... It was like a lady...
There's so many Connors!
Tracy or something. I was just like, bam! I gotta do the thing. I don't know.
Yeah. But eventually you find out that the reason why 2B is so devastated about having to kill 9S is because 9S... Literally killing 9S over and over again, it turns out, you find out much later, is literally 2B's job. The reason she is always assigned to be 9S's partner is because he's, like, designed to be, like, this very brilliant and advanced hacker-type android, and he keeps, because of this, he keeps on eventually figuring out the truth about there being no humans and about the nature of the whole conflict, and it's always her job to kill him and reformat him back to before he found that out.
Oh, my God!
She's, like, come to actually care deeply about him. It's maybe romantically, maybe not, but at very least, she has, like, a huge emotional connection and has known him for God only knows how many years, only to literally be put in a position over and over again of having to kill him and be forgotten. So he keeps on thinking they're meeting for the first time.
My God!
And keeps on thinking, oh, we're striking up this friendship, while she has known him over and over and over again.
Yikes!
And again, something that can only be done with androids. They really, like, fish for all these variables.
Can have a similar thing happen with Connor, where he can die. I think he died once even when I was playing. And I was talking to somebody, and they were like, well, yeah, if Connor dies a ton of times, that really takes its toll on Hank. And that's why he kills himself. I don't even know why he killed himself in my storyline, he just did. But it's just the type of thing you don't really do with androids, because if you kill a human...
That's it!
Sorry, bud! You're dead!
But androids, they open up lots of interesting storytelling possibilities. And I feel like Nier Automata does a great job of deep diving into all these different variables, all these different situations that could arise from the setting and the rules of how its characters work.
Great.
Yes. And that's why, and I feel like that's why, and it's interesting, these two games came out within a couple years of each other, and, were both big deals, and both about androids. And it is a fascinating little situation. I do think they both made good work of it in their own ways. I feel like I prefer Nier Automata myself just because I prefer kind of like weird, super experimental, avant-garde stories like that, while Detroit is more like just like a really good, solid, like, sort of like Hollywood. It's very Hollywood.
Yeah,
it's good.
Very cinematic.
It swings for the big emotions, but it's much more Hollywood kind of thing.
It's very cinematic. I mean,
yes.
like 90% of the game is just cutscenes, and then like the other 10% is interactive cutscenes. That's pretty much the entire game. It's just like one movie, but you can periodically make decisions that can change the outcome of said movie.
Yeah.
And there's like a few little moments where you have to like walk around, but a majority of the game is just cutscenes and interactive, cinematic-looking cutscenes.
Are there any other Android games or even slightly connected things that you wanted to bring up or discuss?
I did want to talk about androids, like characters in like shows and stuff.
Absolutely.
Just briefly, I can't talk much on my android character because, first off, his introduction episode, which is episode 2, isn't even out yet. And even then, I can't really talk about his arc at all because that would be major spoilers. But he's an android. He's casting was interesting because I had to find the perfect balance of like robotic and human, and some people sent in way too robotic or way too human auditions. I did find the perfect guy though, and he's an interesting guy. He works in the palace with Lucifer. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you are probably very confused. He works in Lucifer's palace in hell, and he's just like a helper dude who also has a dark side.
Dun, dun, dun.
Ba-da-da! That's all I'll say. Zane from Ninjago.
Oh yeah, that was weird. Yeah.
So I don't watch Ninjago. We don't really watch Ninjago.
Yeah, like Ninjago, that was like the ultimate example of the kind of show that we would never go out of our way to put on, but sometimes Cartoon Network would be on, and Ninjago would come on in the background, and we kind of sort of catch what was going on in the episode.
Like I remember there was this big thing where Lloyd, I think, he was like a green ninja. I don't know if he was like joining our team. Something was happening with Lloyd, and it was like a big reveal. Like got like a big bad guy is his father, and I'm like, okay, Star Wars, calm down. But the one plot twist that I didn't understand. Maybe it works better in context of like somebody who's actually watched the series. But I remember we caught an episode in the background where I think his name was Zane. He was the white ninja. Was revealed to be a like robot cyborg.
Yes, he was a robot the whole time. And it's like, really?
And I'm like, what?
Really, guys?
It's so weird. And I'm like, this has been going on for like, what, season, 2 seasons? And now you're like, oh, by the way, one of, like, the main characters has been a robot the whole time! And I'm like, are you sure about that?
Yes. And that's a plot twist you do come across every once in a while, is that somebody's a robot. And I'm sure there is a way for it to be good. I don't think I've ever seen a case of it being good. I feel like it's always been...
I haven't seen any cases of that in general. The only one that immediately comes to mind, at least, I'm sure if I really dig through my brain I could find more, but the only one I can really think of is the one from Ninjago. Which again,
felt really arbitrary and silly.
Don't watch the series. Maybe it wasn't arbitrary and silly in a context, but it felt wrong.
And yeah, I can think of like a few other cases where that's been a thing. But anytime I come across it, it's usually just sort of like, I feel like either it's a setting where that's so plausible that it's not necessarily shocking, you know?
Yeah.
Or it's if it is plausible, it's like, or sorry, if it's like doesn't do the groundwork, so that it is genuinely shocking, then it's just like almost stupid. Like it's either too much or too little in a way. Because that's if we're in a setting that is so science fiction advanced that they can make completely lifelike androids, and we know that going into it, then finding out that a character is an android, a super lifelike, super realistic sentient android, it's like, who cares? Like, it kind of doesn't even matter at that point, you know? They're still the same character. Like, what's the point? Or if it doesn't do the groundwork setting it up, then it just, it feels...
Like, what?
It feels ridiculous.
Maybe we can't judge based on appearance because it's Legos, but going in Ninjago felt
it seemed rough. And again, I won't name too many other examples because I can think of like I think 2 other examples off the top of my head, which both sort of felt just kind of arbitrary. I don't want to name those because I'm not going to do a deep dive on them, so I'd literally just be throwing out spoilers for things for no good reason. The other one though that I will spoil just because it's I was reminded of it, and it made me so angry, is going back to a video game.
What happened?
Xenoblade Chronicles X.
What about it?
Okay, so that is a game for the Wii U, deeply underrated console, and Xenoblade Chronicles X, unlike a lot of good Wii U games, has not been brought to the Switch yet, which they need to do because it's great. My favorite of the Xenoblade games. It's fantastic. But it has a staggeringly weird thing where it kept on having plot twists that caused it to be worse and its setting to make less sense. So, like,
that's
ideally,
never a thing
yes,
you want.
Ideally,
You want your plot twist to
make it
like,
better.
Yeah.
To elevate and escalate the tension.
I feel like I want to name one gut, but I feel like it would be a spoiler because I don't know if everyone's watched Kipo.
Alright, Kipo, spoiler warning, skip ahead to 1 minute from now. Go.
Okay, so her mom is a monkey, and it's just so weird because, like, but it's also really well done because the whole time there's this mega monkey that she has, like, this close attachment to, and it's, like, foreshadowed, but also is still a plot twist because you weren't expecting that to be your mother, and it just slowly unravels over time until eventually it's revealed, and you're like, oh, that makes sense, but I also wasn't expecting it, so it's a very good plot twist.
Alright, it's been probably around a minute. Good job. I'm gonna kill a bit of time, though, just in case somebody did skip ahead exactly a minute.
Yeah.
So... yeah, I'm just gonna repeat myself. Xenoblade Chronicles X, bring it to Switch. It's a great game. Despite what I'm about to say about it.
Oh,
God. Okay. Xenoblade Chronicles X. So, it is a science fiction game where, again, and it's one of those things where it's, like, so advanced with the technology that it's basically magic. You could use it to excuse or justify whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
And the general premise of it is that you're on this ship from Earth full of a bunch of humans trying to colonize some other planet or something.
Lovely.
And it ends up getting knocked off course or something and crash lands on the wrong alien world. And you are part of this civilization of this, like, that forms, like, a whole city in the ruins of this crashed ship, and you go out exploring, pioneering, investigating the new world and all the different alien races on it and everything like that.
Okay.
The setting is fantastically well done. It's got a great atmosphere, got a great tone. The sense of adventure and exploration is incredible. Like, and the music, amazing. Great battle system, so much to enjoy.
But
here's the thing. There's a cutscene a ways in where your character gets into a fight. And this is, like, not, like, super early. Like, this is, like, hours and hours into the game. You've gotten into plenty of fights. Your character's even, like, probably died in battle up to this point.
yeah.
But in this one arbitrary battle, it cuts over to a little cutscene where your character got hurt and their arm fell off, and it's like, oh, my arm's mechanical? And at first I thought, like, and I was so, like, used to how sci-fi things were in this game. I was like, huh, does my character just have a robotic arm? Or maybe they're an android? But again, I just didn't care if they were an android. But I thought, okay, everybody's acting really weird about this. And your character seems shocked about this, so I guess, like, they're an android and didn't realize it. But again, I just didn't care. But I thought, okay, whatever, we'll move on. It's so much worse than that.
What did they do? How could it be worse than that? What?
Because all the other characters are like, oh, what? You mean you didn't know? We're all androids!
Oh,
it turns out
God.
that all the hundreds, thousands of humans in this city are all android bodies. But more convoluted than that, they're not just, like, full-on androids and that's the end of it. It turns out that they are controlled by human minds that belong to human bodies that are still in cryostasis, some unknown place that you need to find. And you need to find all the cryostasis body, because if the bodies die, then the mental connection will end too, and all these characters in the city will die.
That is horrible!
It's so stupid. And again, it raises so many logistical questions. And also, your characters don't even know where the signals that are coming from. And so it's like, so seriously, like, these signals are strong enough that they can, are so instantaneous and constant that your character didn't even realize that they were anything but a living person. And everybody's, like, reflexes and everything is all instantaneous. So, but signals are that strong, but you can't track signals, you can't figure out anything about signals, and why are they that good, and why is it so convoluted? And also, this city that you're in has all sorts of, like, people like of different ages and everything like that. Why are they different ages?
Oh,
Why do they bother
my
making all the
God.
android bodies look exactly like the people that they represent? That's so much extra work for literally no benefit.
My God.
Also, there's all sorts like restaurants and everything.
No!
Why do they eat? That's not efficient for an android.
Oh!
Why did they do this?
My God.
And it just makes the entire setting implode in on itself, and I was like, nothing makes sense, and I don't care anymore. This is so stupid, I no longer feel emotionally invested.
Dear Lord.
It was
Sorry
one
for
of my
just,
least...
for both of us yelling. For
It was one of my least favorite plot twists I've ever seen, especially because... Yeah.
My God.
And that's the thing, like, it's so bad that it ruined the game for me. Like, I was loving the game, and I kept playing after that, but that took the wind out of my sails. Like I was like a ghost going through the game for a while until I eventually stopped. And then I found out there's another plot twist at like the end of the game where it turns...
It's also completely mind-breaking monstrosity.
Yes, and it doesn't explain anything. It just opens another bigger question without any explanation.
What did it do?
So I apparently finally find where all the bodies are, and they're all already dead.
Okay.
But your characters are still alive in their new bodies. The end.
What?
So what was the point of even doing that? They literally introduced this only to have it not matter and not be resolved or tie into anything. They did nothing except make their storyline 1,000 times more complicated, less convincing, and stupid, and then it didn't even have any, like, payoff or, like, dramatic justification. Like, the fact that they had these separate bodies outside of their own bodies, that, like, if they had some actual plan for that, that was the only reason for that to even be a thing, but it turns out there was no plan. It didn't matter.
That is horrible.
It's so bad.
Oh my God.
So that is an example of using androids as a concept, not because you have a strong, good idea for it as a thought experiment or for symbolism, but just because you want to fit in an extra plot twist.
Because why not?
Because why not?
That is terrible.
It is so bad, and I'm glad we got to yell about this plot twist that upsets me so badly.
We yelled so much. Sorry if you were wearing headphones, and sorry I was just shouting the whole time, but
deserves
that was my
to be yelled
authentic
about.
reaction. I haven't even played any of these games in the series that he's talking about, but I just... That's so bad.
It's so bad. And unfortunately, it's a habit of the Xenoblade games where their plot twists, that's the worst of them. That's the worst of them. But they always have plot twists that literally just...
I know what our promo audio is gonna be. It's just like a minute of us screaming.
Like, but they have that weird habit of having plot twists that just make things more complicated, but less interesting.
Yikes.
The one exception being the forerunner to the Xenoblade and Xenosaga games, which is Dear Xenogears, which is still one of the greatest sci-fi epics ever told.
I'm so annoyed right now.
Yes.
I'm just like mad. I'm just I'm just mad. Like, why would they... What even is the point? There was no
point. And again, like...
It just makes everything sound more complicated for no decent reason.
Yes, and especially was poisoned for that game because, like I said, the entire thing that really completely gripped me about the game was the sense of setting and atmosphere, and I felt like very invested in like the whole weird like little like, you know, human city struggling to get by on this alien world. So making it so that suddenly it didn't make any sense and I didn't understand the stakes or the logistics or anything anymore.
That's so dumb.
Yeah, it really kind of ruined it for me.
Oh, that's horrible.
It was.
That's bad.
And this kind of I'm not going to get into this. We'll save this for another episode. But this does make me think of the other two worst plot twists in a video game that I've ever come across. I'm only going to name drop them now because they're irrelevant. But one of them is from Zero Time Dilemma, and the other one is from Phoenix Wright versus Professor Layton. Those two, along with Xenoblade Chronicles X, are the holy trinity of terrible video game plot twists.
Wow.
Yes.
Like, I'm...
Exactly. And that's the thing. Even not having played the game, there's so many things that are to nitpick and find stupid in it. But I promise you, if you had played the game for hours and hours and knew how much world building had gone into it that this completely conflicted with, it just destroyed me.
I'm trying to think of video game plot twists I've seen. The only one that really comes to my mind is Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh yeah, you were wanting to maybe mention those as Android adjacent.
Yeah, animatronic, I guess, Android.
Close enough.
I mean, I'm pretty sure they're child's dead souls.
It's a complicated issue.
So it's kind of what you were describing with the whole Xeno, but more spooky.
Yes.
And well done.
Yes.
But there was some sort of plot twist in the fourth game where I don't know, where you learn that your main character, that you've been playing as, got his head bitten and frontal lobe ripped out by and that's violent. I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, hold on. That's really graphic. But I remember, Scott mentions, a bag of 87 or something, and then people were based off the details he gave, they were well, it could be Foxy, just because of the way Foxy was. A lot of people, the one I thought it was Mangle, because it's the frontal lobe, and if you remember, Mangle attacks from
an angle, yeah.
That sort of angle, and then it turned out that, I don't remember if, Fredbear just, ate him, or, if his brother threw him in or something. It was something like that, but that was an interesting plot twist. It wasn't terrible, just interesting.
And just, with, just mentioning Five Nights at Freddy's briefly as far as androids go, do you know the origin of why he made those games?
No.
So,
I feel like I probably did at one point, and I say I might refresh my memory.
Yeah.
I can't think of it right now.
It was basically a thing where he made quite a few games before that were all commercial and critical failures that everybody kind of either ignored or made fun of.
Yeah.
But one of the things that people made fun of with a previous game of his was how creepy the characters looked when they were supposed to be cute and adorable, but just because the art style, people were like, that's accidentally horrific. And instead of just getting his feelings hurt and retreating, Scott decided to go all in on that and made Five Nights at Freddy's that is all just about fully leaning into that aesthetic.
Yeah.
And I find that is a very good, life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
Why are you laughing?
Because I'm remembering I had you listen to those Cave Johnson
God.
voice clips about his exploding lemons.
Combustible lemon!
Yes.
To burn down... I will have my people make a combustible lemon to burn down your house!
Yes.
If you guys don't know what we're talking about, you're probably so concerned for my sanity.
But Portal 2, and of course Portal games have the wonderful character GLaDOS, or Gladys, however you pronounce it, who is an artificial intelligence, android adjacent. Kind of on topic, but getting back on to Five Nights at Freddy's for a second, it's a situation where I feel like that does a good job of sort of leaning into the whole sort of creepy, uncanny horror side of things, because really, both the animatronics and androids in general, when they're used for horror, it's usually not a case where, it's somebody within the setting makes an android with the intention of that android being, a killer. That's usually not the case.
Yeah.
Sometimes, there's Terminator and stuff, but usually that's not the case. Far more often, the horror angle they go with is the horror of it being meant for one purpose, usually a very harmless or helpful purpose, but then it's due to some screw up in his programming or ghosts.
Of murdered children
yes.
from a
warping,
ex-employee who is also possessing one of the...
yes.
Sorry, not possessing. His decaying dead body
Precisely.
is inside of one of them, and his soul is possessing it.
Yes, and so
That, saying it out loud, it's really dark.
It is. But the whole sort of thing, that's almost always what androids are used for when they're being scary, is an android that is meant for a harmless purpose, but then it's been warped or corrupted or malfunctioning to be violent and dangerous instead. That's a very common way to use those. It's an interesting thing where it brings back to the whole question of whether you think of androids more as machines or as humans, because they're neither, but you can't help but sort of like mentally file them closer to one or the other.
Yeah.
And
well, I feel like after playing Detroit, I close them closer to
exactly. I feel like stuff
human.
Stuff like that, and also Nier Automata. It's interesting where, even though it leans all in on the fact that they're artificial, you absolutely, their emotions and personalities are real, and you fully care and feel super invested, and has some of the most heartbreaking stuff I've ever seen in a video game. But then, whenever they're used for horror, that's always, by its very nature, kind of reducing them purely down to machines in that point, because that's basically arguing that them even trying to have a personality can't help but be creepy and a corruption that makes them dangerous. So it's an interesting thing where, android rights have almost become a thing, even though, of course, it's an unfathomably long time from being even remotely relevant.
Yeah.
But, all these, works of fiction still are basically, weighing in on a social issue that's not even a social issue right now.
Literally got the entirety of Detroit.
Exactly.
It's a whole thing is about android right
Yeah,
now.
and it's a question, too, in real life, if you were to see an android, and you see it suffering, is that equivalent to seeing a human suffer? No, or is it more a case, no matter how advanced they are, is it technically not really any different than somebody pressing a button on a computer that makes the computer play an ow sound file?
I don't like that.
And that's the thing, there's no easy answer.
I don't like that.
How do you know whether something is really sentient, or just been programmed to fake sentience? And furthermore, is there a difference?
I don't like that.
These are all questions.
We're all just androids deep down inside.
Exactly. By the way, I'm not going to. This is probably going to be my closing little thing. Obviously, you go on about whatever you want next, but just my little closing thing I want to say is a video game I've not finished yet, but is very good from what I've played of it, is called The Turing Test, which, as you probably guessed from the title, has to do with artificial intelligence and stuff like that. I don't want to give any spoilers because I haven't even finished it yet anyway, but I've got enough information to have my suspicions, but it is a short, Portal-ish puzzle game. Imagine Portal sort of puzzles, and you'll get a good idea of what kind of gameplay to expect. Although obviously it doesn't literally have portals, because that would be copyright infringement. But it's very good. It has lots of fun little conversations and dialogue, analyzing stuff like the difference between intelligence and artificial intelligence, and whether it ultimately matters. Now,
all I want to say is that I mentioned my android character earlier. The character's name is Hades, and I was looking at the website. By the way, the person who voices Hades is very professional, and it's kind of intimidating. But I went to his professional website, and I saw that he did a Sony commercial. Just such an intimidating fella. And it's the whole Sony commercial is about why you should trust AI. And I'm hearing it in the voice of this kind of sentient android character is horrifying.
that is awesome.
Anyways, how are we gonna end out this?
Well, I guess I would say just thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Hope you've enjoyed. And
if you're listening to this on SoundCloud and you want more, follow us on SoundCloud. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you like more, subscribe to this Bombastigon channel.
Much appreciated. And now I might just say Bombastigon one last time before we log off. And that is actually going to be how I do log off, because as far as I
have my
can tell,
own way in mind to actually hit the end button, but yes.
By all means. Thing is, though, as far as I know, I think the only reason we call this Bombastigon is because Bombastigon is fun to say. So I'm just going to sign off by saying it one final time. Farewell and Bombastigon.